Hello and welcome to this preview/review of the early access version of Super Retro GP from Dangerous Derk Interactive. I say that because this game is not finished. As you may already know, early access allows people to pay money up front for unfinished games on Steam so that they can play them and perhaps help mould the final product through offering feedback. So I'm not going to put a score on this one just yet, but I am going to say what I think, and there's a lot to talk about. This is an unofficial pseudo-sequel to Sega's Model 1 coin-op racer, Virtua Racing. Even more than at previous stage, the game borrows from that game's aesthetic in so many ways. The same camera views in the attract mode, flat-shaded polygons everywhere you look, and even now a title screen that echoes Virtua Racing's title slam, having now dropped the previous logo, which was more reminiscent of Super Monaco GP. It's clear that this game is gunning to be the closest we've ever got to Virtua Racing 2. Initial impressions of this early access version are that it's gained a ton of speed. It's so much faster than it was before, making for an absolutely breathless ride, especially if you choose one of the onboard camera views with the motion blur switched on. It's very fast. But is it controllable? Well, yes, though I do have some reservations at this stage, but I think that's more to do with analog mapping than the game engine being squiffy. I like to push my left stick forward and rotate it around to steer, something I demonstrated in my video How to Be Better at All Racing Games, but the cars here are very twitchy, even with the smallest analog inputs, so even using the more traditional left-right tilt of the stick is no better. It's just set with very high sensitivity by default. I'm sure this will be looked at before full release, especially as playing with a pad at present gives you an unusual and arguably unusable mapping for manual gears, with the right trigger mapped to accelerate and the right bumper next to it mapped to shift up, which is clearly wrong. You can at least remap the controls, but it would be better if it was set to A and X as downshift and upshift by default. At present, the game only has 4 playable circuits, which is still one more than Virtua Racing has, though there are many more locked away. You can't unlock them through winning, so they'll likely just be available on full release. Now I have to say some of the track design is absolutely superb, so let's have a look at them in turn. The Forest Falls Raceway is a nice, easy course for beginners with wide open asphalt and some lovely Virtua Racing Big Forest-esque iconography like the metal-framed bridge and the triangular trees, though there are far more trees here than Virtua Racing ever managed. That's progress for you. One corner near the end of the lap has a deceptive bump that can send you into the wall if you're not careful, and the double left-handers nearer to the start can cause your car to skid, so you really have to slow down carefully and get your line right, so it's definitely not all plain sailing. It's a nice track and one that feels very 90s Sega. Then there's the Matterhorn Pass track, which is better still, with 3 particularly testing corners, namely the right-hander of the first big chicane, the tightening right-hander in the tunnel, and then the last corner as you emerge into the light near the end of the lap. All of these corners have buckets of potential for shaving tenths and hundredths from your time, and with the timer counting to the thousandth of a second, things might get mega tight on the leaderboards if the community gets hold of this. Then comes the Sandstorm Motorplex track, which starts off actually feeling broken because the car can take off over some of the bumps, which I think is unrealistic. However, if you learn the track and start honing your lines, it reveals one of the finest time attack layouts of modern years. This track is just so good, and driving it on the ragged edge is such a blast. As I'm speaking to you, I'm actually the fastest in the world on this track, and I had such a good time getting to that stage. It's a really great track. As for the final of the 4 included tracks at this stage, I'm less convinced by the Birmingham Super Prix circuit, which is a bit messy at the moment. The AI exhibits severe pathfinding issues, occasionally glitches straight upwards into the sky, and stopping for the corners just takes way too long. I'm also disappointed to see the wheel locking of the preview version is absent, as I really liked that and it was good on this track. This circuit is too tight and punishing with these wall collision physics to be enjoyable, especially at the new increased speed of the game, and I think if I was the producer, I would actually omit this track completely. The game doesn't need it, especially when it contains some of the only instances of slowdown on both the Steam Deck and an RTX 2070 enabled laptop. There are some cool weather effects that are randomly chosen as you reload the track, but even so, I'm just not really feeling this one at the moment. All of the tracks do have online leaderboards, both for time attack and race, though some of the times are currently surely glitched, as I can't see how anyone could go that much faster than me when I'm already almost flat out all the way around. Now, those wall collisions that I mentioned earlier, I think they need examining because they don't result in a canned flip animation no matter how hard you hit them. Instead, they just sap loads of speed from your car, bringing you to a near halt at times, which is really annoying when you've only just brushed the wall on a flying lap. That's not to say the cars can't flip, though you're more likely to become airborne through contact with another car rather than anything to do with the environment itself. I would really like to see canned flip animations added to the game, especially if it really wants to be just like Virtua Racing, which was actually famous for them on release. The same goes for collisions with the AI cars. In Virtua Racing, a heavy hit always results in both cars spinning out, but here, that doesn't happen. This might be deliberate due to the tight nature of the races, which result in a lot of collisions, especially on that Birmingham track, which would just leave you spinning constantly if this was enabled. But the Acropolis and Bay Bridge tracks on Virtua Racing are also really tight, and you do hit the other cars a lot, at least until you know what you're doing. The AI itself also needs some work. Aside from its occasional pathfinding issues, it also has a habit of braking unrealistically suddenly and also accelerating away too quickly. It can also zoom ahead, occasionally overtaking you invisibly on the Matterhorn pass track, leaving you second and then first and then second again without ever seeing the car responsible. It's a recurring bug. The rest of the time, the cars are definitely slower than you, and that's deliberate. The aim of the game is to win by outrunning the other cars, which is meant to be a rush, rather than ever having to defend your position, and I'm fine with that. We don't see that enough these days. This game has got true arcade heritage running through its veins, and that's really cool. What the game does right, however, is to deliver a super smooth, visually appealing game that just feels fun to control, and there's a lot to be said for that. I also like the way it uses some modern lighting effects while keeping the flat-shaded aesthetic, making the tunnel runs look both basic and brilliant at the same time. When it's running at full speed and you get your lines right, it looks and feels superb. Also superb is the graphics menu, not for its look, but for the looks it affords you. The CRT simulation is wonderful, with a curved display and subtle scan lines making this look like the 90s all over again. The aforementioned motion blur is also great, and there are options for the weather effects and more. It's worth noting that I had no problem running the game on ultra settings, with most tracks maintaining a pretty stable 60 frames per second, even on what's now a comparatively low-end 2070 Nvidia card. I'm not so enamoured with the polygonal swimsuit models on the transmission select screen. For a start, they don't have eyes, which creeps me out, but I also feel like the world has moved on since the 90s idea of glamour, and it just doesn't sit right anymore. So, for now, the game still has loads of potential. It has some of the best track design I've seen outside of an AM2 racer, and that's really saying something. I think I would actually urge Sega to buy this whole project, and call it Virtua Racing 2, giving it a bigger budget with which to hone the gameplay and engine to a fine sheen. That would be stellar. I would love to have an official Virtua Racing 2, and I would really love for it to be this game. For me, I'm still happy playing Time Attack for now, enjoying the depths of the car handling as I spin the wheels at low speeds and dance with disaster around some frighteningly fast corners. The essence of what makes a great racing game is hard to point to in modern games, but Super Retro GP understands it. Whether it can fully deliver on this promise remains to be seen, but I sincerely hope so. Games like this do come along quite often, these retro racers, but those with this much potential certainly don't. As I say, I'm not going to give this game a score at the moment because it's still in early access, but I hope you've enjoyed this video. If so, please hit like and subscribe, and take a look around my channel for more gaming videos, music, and much more. Also, if you love classic Sega games as much as I do, you should enjoy my Sega Sundays playlist, which is updated with a new Let's Play every Sunday using real games on real hardware. As for now, that's all from me. Take it easy until next time. Cheers.